Hello, and welcome to No Sleep Tonight. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps these true horror stories coming. People say Ouija boards are just cardboard and plastic, but others believe it opens a door you can't close. Alright, let's dive into 3 unsettling true Ouija board stories that will make you think twice about ever touching one. The warning. I was 17 when I made the dumbest decision of my life. I tried a Ouija board alone. Everyone tells you not to, that it opens doors you can't close. But I didn't believe any of that. I thought it was just a piece of cardboard with letters printed on it. I sat down on the floor of my room, set the board in front of me, and placed the planchette in the middle. I kept my fingertips resting on it, light enough that I could feel every little movement. For a long time, nothing happened. I asked if anyone was there. I asked for a name. I asked stupid things, just to see if anything would answer. The planchette stayed still. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, talking into the empty room, staring at the board, waiting for something to happen. By then, I was already thinking of putting it away. I even pushed the planchette back to the center like I was finished. But before I stood up, I asked one more question. A question I probably shouldn't have asked. I said, "Will anything bad happen to me or to my family?" The planchette finally moved. Not fast, slow, smooth. I felt my stomach tighten as it scraped to the first letter, then the second. A CC. My hands were shaking, but it kept going. IDENTACCIDENT. I pulled my hands back, staring at the board, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. The silence in that room felt endless. I tried to tell myself I had spelled it without realizing that it was me the whole time. But deep down, I didn't believe it. I shoved the board back into its box, slid it under my bed, and lay down. But I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured the planchette dragging itself across the letters. Every creak in the house made me jump. At some point, the sun came up, and I realized I hadn't slept at all. The next morning, my brother left for work like normal. I remember hearing the front door slam and thinking about that word, accident. I sat in the kitchen with a bowl of cereal, staring at it until the milk turned warm. I couldn't get the word out of my head. Less than an hour later, the phone rang. I answered, and a woman asked for my parents. She said my brother had been in a car crash on the highway. His car was completely wrecked. He was lucky to be alive. I don't even remember what I said. My whole body went cold. My hands shook so badly, I could hardly hold the phone. I just stood there, hearing her voice. But all I could think about was the words spelled out on the board the night before. Accident. When my parents rushed to the hospital, I went straight upstairs. I pulled the box out from under my bed, carried it up to the attic, and shoved it behind old boxes, where I wouldn't have to look at it. I didn't care what happened to it, as long as it was out of my room. I never touched it again. And even now, years later, I still can't decide which thought is worse. That the board warned me about what was coming, or that it made it happen. The wrong name. I was 13 when I first used a Ouija board. It happened at a sleepover, the kind where we stayed up too late, eating junk food and daring each other to do stupid things. There were 5 of us in the room that night. Somebody pulled the board out from under the bed, and everyone wanted to try it. I wasn't scared. I honestly thought it was a toy. I'd seen them in stores. To me, it was no different than Monopoly or Jenga, but the others acted serious about it. They set it down in the middle of the carpet, lit a single candle, and told me to put my fingers on the planchette. At first, it was a joke. We laughed as we asked questions like, "Who will we marry?" or "What's our future job?" The planchette didn't move at all. One girl rolled her eyes and said it was fake. For a while, we almost gave up. Then one of the girls asked, "Who's here with us?" That was when everything changed. The planchette began to slide, slowly, but smooth enough that it didn't feel like someone was just pushing it. We all swore it wasn't us. One girl even lifted her hands off for a second, just to prove she wasn't moving it. Still, it kept going. It spelled out a name. The letters came one at a time. None of us said it out loud until the full name was clear. We just stared at each other. It wasn't a name any of us recognized. It wasn't a teacher, or a friend, or anyone at our school. And it wasn't common. The spelling was strange. The kind of name that sticks in your head because it doesn't sound like anything you've heard before. We waited for someone to laugh. Nobody did. For a long time, we just sat there in silence with our fingers hovering above the board. One of the girls said she was done, and she pulled her hands back. The rest of us followed. We tried again later, but nothing else happened. The planchette stayed still no matter what we asked. Eventually, we shoved the board under the bed and went back to movies and gossip. By the next morning, I'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. 2 weeks later, my family moved. Neighbors stopping by to say hello. That's when it happened. I was outside when the family next door came over to introduce themselves. The mother walked up with her daughter, who looked about my age. She smiled and told me her name. I froze. It was the exact name the board had spelled out. Same odd spelling, same unusual sound. I tried not to react. I forced a smile, said hello, and pretended nothing was wrong. But inside, my stomach flipped. Out of everyone in the world, that's the name the board had given us. Weeks before she moved in. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my friends from that night. I kept it to myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. For months after, every time I saw her, every time I heard someone say her name, I remembered sitting on that floor in the dark, watching the board spell it out. It was like the board knew she was coming before anyone else did. I've never touched a Ouija board since. And to this day, whenever I think about that night, the thing that scares me most is how specific it was. It wasn't random letters. It wasn't a word we could twist into meaning something. It was a name, a real person's name. And she ended up living right next door. The copycat, I was in college when a group of us decided to mess around with a Ouija board one Friday night. It wasn't supposed to be serious. We had a few drinks, turned off the lights, and thought it would be funny to scare ourselves. At first, it was all jokes. We asked stupid questions, laughed when nothing happened, and accused each other of trying to move the planchette. For a while, it felt like a waste of time. Then the board started answering. Not in full sentences, just small things. Yes, no, random letters. We still thought it was one of us messing around. But then it spelled out something that made the room go quiet. It was a phrase we used all the time, a dumb inside joke between us. Nobody outside our group even said it. Yet the board spelled it out perfectly, letter by letter. We stared at each other, waiting for someone to admit it was them. Nobody did. Nobody laughed this time. The planchette slid back to the middle and stopped. We put the board away soon after, but none of us could shake the weird feeling. Later that night, when the dorm was quiet, I was lying in bed, trying to sleep. My roommate was out cold on the other side of the room. That's when I heard it. A whisper right by my ear, clear enough that I knew I wasn't dreaming. It repeated the same phrase the board had spelled earlier. Our phrase. The exact same tone and rhythm we always said it in. I froze. I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening. The whisper didn't come again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was in the room. The next morning, I told the others. Most of them laughed it off, but one of my friends looked just as shaken as I was. He said he'd heard something too. The night before, when he was alone in his dorm room, he swore someone repeated one of his own words back to him. That afternoon, we broke the board in half and threw it out. We didn't want it anywhere near us. But here's the part that still gets to me. Every once in a while, even years later, I'll hear it again. That same phrase, whispered low, like it's following me, like something heard us that night and decided not to forget. That's it. 3 real experiences with the Ouija board. Every one of them started as curiosity, a game, something harmless to pass the time. But once the planchette started moving, none of them walked away the same. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, sleep well.